Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are joining us from. We are here today with the folks from Trend Micro. We've got Kyle McCaffrey. He's the national MSP National Channel Account Manager. We've got Daryl Griffin, who is the sales engineer, and Brandon Kilpatrick, who is also the sales engineer. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome. Thank you, Scott, for having us, man.
Glad to be here.
How's everyone's day going today?
Can't complain.
Doing great.
Excellent.
Everybody got their Christmas shopping done?
I did a lot of Amazon.
Someone's taking care of that for me. So let's say that.
Awesome. I have a little bit of that, but I still have that special one person I've definitely got to get something for. So that's the name of the game this time of year, though. I'll probably end up doing that on Christmas Eve, though, knowing myself. But well, I am excited to learn all about Trend Micro today. So, Kyle, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, I'll kick it off. So, just quick intro from my end. I am Kyle McCaffrey. I've been with Trend Micro for about 1 year and 3 months now. Prior to that, I was at ConnectWise for just a little bit over 5 years. Did a variety of security, support, and sales roles, so kind of all over the place. But yeah, I love Trend Micro, kind of our story and what the future kind of holds. But yeah, just got a couple quick slides I'd like to share with you guys. So I'll share my screen here. Oh, Scott, I can't screen share.
Try that again.
There we go. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Perfectly.
Okay. Perfect, cool. So like I kind of mentioned, we're the Trend Micro MSP team. My name is Kyle McCaffrey. I also have on the line Daryl Griffin and Brandon Patrick, who are our sales engineers. So I'll just go right into it. So I know a lot of you guys are probably thinking, oh, Trend Micro, those are those, legacy, AV, grandpa AV, someone legacy in the market. Well, I'm here to tell you, that's not exactly accurate. Cybersecurity, it's a really rapidly changing market. New technologies constantly out, new companies, new types of attacks. Trend Micro has really evolved, with all these components along the way. So just some quick numbers to kind of know about us. We have a over 30-year history of innovation, demonstrative spirit and forward-thinking culture, kind of testament to our business resiliency as well. We've been public for a long time. We've been profitable in that as well. And we have almost 7,000 employees at Trend Micro in over 45 countries. And actually 40% of those are dedicated to, R&D and threat detection. So in my opinion, that kind of goes to show you, hey, we're really, dedicated to protecting our partner base. So, we always know there's so many new attacks coming out. So cool little statistic there. Some things about us in the industry, we've been named a leader in Gartner's Magic Quadrant for damn near 20 years. IDC, we were ranked the #1 hybrid cloud vendor. And then Forrester, we've been named a leader in them for quite a long time, since 2020. And this actually kind of leads me to my next point, as we were actually named the #1 XDR vendor. This is actually Q4 of this year, so just about a month or two ago. So I know a lot of you guys are kind of thinking, hey, what exactly is XDR? I'm pretty familiar with the term EDR with a lot of our competitors in space. And Daryl will kind of go over this a little bit more, but just to kind of go over it from a high level, XDR gives you the ability to correlate data automatically across not only endpoint, but also email. It gives you that ability to do automated detection of sleeping, and will also give you the ability to do root cause analysis. So I'll go ahead and hand it off to Daryl. He's going to go over Worry-Free XDR.
Thank you, Kyle. Actually, I'm going to share my screen just real briefly here for a second. Brandon is actually going to cover the worry-free side of things and the XDR, but really this is kind of the list of topics: endpoint security using worry-free services, a couple of additional products that are bundled with worry-free called Worry-Free Services Advanced, cloud app security and email security, and then the EDR, XDR components. So Brandon's going to cover all of that for you. With he's a pretty brave soul. He's going to do a live console presentation, and then I'll follow up with that, talking about some of the tools that are free for our MSPs to use to manage not only the products that Brandon's going to go over, but UTM device that Trend offers through our MSP partners only, called Cloud Edge, and then followed up with a phishing assessment service that Trend Micro has that's free for you to use. So I'll stop sharing and give that to Brandon for a little while, and then I'll return. Okay?
And quick note, everyone, if you guys have any questions, feel free to post that in the Facebook chat. Scott will, intercept what we're doing, and we're happy to kind of go over any Q's and A's you guys got for us. So,
Kyle, I do have one question. Ryan Becker said, and I think you've already gone over it, but he may have come in after the slide. How large of a company is Trend Micro?
We're huge. We have almost 7,000 employees across 45 countries. So, we're everywhere. We have so many different, people really dedicated to, protecting our customers. Just kind of going back to 40% dedicated R&D and threat detection. So, we're huge, and we're, definitely looking to expand the MSP market as well.
Awesome. I tell you, we were talking about it the other day that Trend Micro was over 30 years old, and I'm thinking, God, that is a long time. But what I was really thinking was, I'm really old now.
Yeah, me too, partner.
And okay, well, I'm excited to learn more then.
Cool. All right. So yeah, I'm Brendan Kirkpatrick, like they said. I'm an inside sales engineer at Trend. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and like Daryl said, I'm going to show you a live console of Worry-Free. He's going to show you remote manager, license management platform, MSP-specific tools. But from my side of it, I'm going to focus on the actual products themselves, what the console looks like, and what day-to-day management is going to look like, and also the protection offering. Okay, so go ahead and share my screen. The first product we're going to go over is Worry-Free Security Services, and this is the endpoint protection part of the suite. Okay, how it works, there's an endpoint agent that runs on the endpoint. Endpoint checks in to this console and it says, okay, what protection or what modules do I enable? And then according to what group they're in, what policy they have, it tells them what modules for protection to turn on. Very simple, very similar to every endpoint protection product out there, but we're going to look at what makes Trend unique in that space. Okay, we're looking at a dashboard here. I think you guys have all seen a dashboard. Just an overview of what's going on, of what detections are we seeing. Noteworthy events here, that's relevant to the XDR and EDR discussion, so we'll get to that. And then security risk over time, just some overall metrics, what's going on with your licenses, and which ones of your security agents are outdated and offline, things like that. So I'm going to go now to the security agents portion. And this is where the bulk of the configuration takes place. This is where we're dividing machines into logical subgroups based on location, based on department, whatever makes the most sense for that organization. And then each of those groups that we're seeing on the left, they have their own policy associated. So I created one this morning called Brandon's group. That's my group. There's no machines in it. If I wanted to add a machine, it's very simple. You add security agents. And this leads right into deployment. You guys are MSPs. I imagine you're using Kaseya, you're using Enable, you're using, I guess it's called ConnectWise Manage now. It used to be LabTech, but you know all about deployment of software. And you can do that by downloading the installer here. There's also specialized ways to do that, deployment scripts that could be generated. Daryl will show you that in the remote manager as well. But just know that you deploy out this agent via whatever RMM tool that you have, or you can even use Active Directory if you want, just by using the MSI that's supplied here within the console. You can also send an installer link to someone if they have admin rights, maybe they're in like another country, and it's easier just to send them a link and have them download and run it. That's an option you can do there too. But once you deploy it out, tied to that installer is the membership in this group. So when that machine checks in, it will appear in this group. So you hit configure policy here to decide what parameters we're turning on, which modules we're enabling. And I like this screen because it shows you how there's multiple different layers at work here. It's not just an antivirus product. It's not just pattern based, and it's not just behavioral based. It's a combination of all of that and more. So we'll look at each module, and please feel free to ask me any questions as we go. So I'm going to get this primarily focused on Windows. Most people run Windows, but you'll notice at the top that we do support Mac in this. We support Android agents, iOS, and Chromebooks, and all those can be in Brandon's group that we just saw right here. So we'll start here with the scan settings. This is your bread and butter antivirus. This is what you expect from an antivirus. The real-time scan is checking every time something is created, modified, or retrieved, and we're making sure that it's not in fact spyware or a virus or a malware, just based on the patterns and definitions that we have. We're just comparing that to our list. No, that's not a virus. Carry on as normal, or yes, it is. Let's take action against it. This is very standard for what you'd expect from an AV provider. You also have the option to schedule scan, do a deep dive on the hard drive. Let's check all the files on this hard drive, make sure that they're all clean. We're going to do that by default here Monday at 12:30, which is great. Something I like to point out for this, though, a lot of people are like, I don't like to run scans during the day because it slows down my users. But if I run them at night, my machines aren't on. So definitely a problem. So if I look in here in action, you actually have a CPU usage throttling section here. So I can set this to low. And so anytime the processor gets above 20%, it starts to pause the Trend Micro scan. So you can run this during the day. Most of the time when people are on a low CPU usage, they don't even know the scan is running in the background. So it lets you consistently run those scans while the users are online, but also not impact their performance. So very nice feature. A lot of people like that. And then you have a manual scan, just one that you can run on demand. That has that same setting. You'd probably want to leave that on high though. Reason being, if I run a manual scan, I want it to finish as soon as possible. I want my results as soon as possible. So again, standard antivirus there. The stuff below is where Trend starts to stand out a little bit. I'll show you what makes us unique here. First
Brandon,
thing, behavior monitor. Sir.
Before you get into that, I'm going to kind of keep up with these questions.
Yeah.
Bobby Rose asked, does it require browser add-ons in addition to the app?
It does not.
Okay, no browser add-ons.
Agent, all this is enforced simply through the Trend Micro agent.
Okay.
Good question.
Okay. And is ransomware protection included?
It's funny that you should ask. Behavior monitoring here, the next module that we're going to discuss, this is purpose-built for ransomware.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, let's get into that. So on the topic of ransomware, there are thousands of variants out there. They vary in size, they vary in the name, the unique file hash. There's constantly new ones being generated. You can go to the dark web, you can buy a kit to make your own ransomware with its own unique signature. All that to say, it's difficult to stay ahead of it with just signature-based detection. That's just the reality of it. What this is doing is it's looking at the behavior instead of the actual signature. All those thousands of variants, it's nice they're all different, but they all do the same thing. They all want to take an unauthorized encryption action against one file, then move on to the next file in that directory and do the same thing, and so on and so forth, and then they drop a ransom note at the end. So we are looking for that behavior. We're looking for that initial unauthorized encryption action. Then we're looking for that follow-up unauthorized encryption action. And so if we see that, there's even a feature in here to automatically back up those files locally and then restore them if they were encrypted in an unauthorized fashion. And then we identify the process responsible for that and take action against it. And so again, we're looking for the behavior here, not looking at the signature itself. Is this acting like ransomware, right? Additionally, a lot of small businesses use QuickBooks. You turn this on. This is looking for somebody interacting with those QBW files in an unauthorized ways. It always looks the same when users are accessing the QBW file with QuickBooks. They're accessing it over the network, right? So if we see something different than that, this is monitoring for some weird processes all of a sudden interacting with the QBW file, right? So, and then lastly, there's event monitoring. I like these a lot. I had somebody call them eyebrow raisers, and I think that's a very apt description. It's just, it's something that happens on your network that maybe in the context of you knowing the network would be like, that's odd, that's interesting, let me look into that. Things like a host file modification. That might be something you do as an administrator. I'm gonna add a custom host in this host file. I've got some DNS issues on Band-Aid fix, right? But if you see a user do this on Friday at 2 a.m. and you know they have no idea what a host file is, you've potentially got a problem that's been identified. So, and a lot of these are like that. You can just set these to always allow, and that'll simply log when it happens, or you can block them, or you can even have pop up and say, hey, are you sure you want to modify the host file? Is that something you want to do? So, but yeah, that's behavior monitoring. Predictive machine learning here, another layer. We're looking at new and low prevalence files here, something newly introduced into the system. And we're looking at the file features and the file metadata, and we're comparing that to a massive machine learning algorithm that we're gathering information from other Trend clients. And we're looking, we could say things like this file is 60% similar to something that I've seen in the past that caused damage. Based on that, I'm going to take action against it. I'm going to quarantine that file, or I'm going to terminate that process just because it's fishy based on its origins and based on this machine learning algorithm. Machine learning is way above my head, but just know that all you have to do is turn this on, quarantine, and terminate, and this is sourcing information from a lot of different places and looking at anything that's unique and new on the environment. Okay? Next is vulnerability protection. So this, I'm going to open up these intrusion prevention rules here, but this is essentially a host-based intrusion prevention. And what that means is that we're actually applying virtual patches to some of the most common vulnerabilities that we observe on these endpoints. And so this information actually comes directly from ZDI. Some of our more enterprise products are going to have more and more rules, but this rule set has really been condensed down to the most common vulnerabilities that we observe being exploited on workstations, and we're applying a virtual patch. And that means that while it's not patched, Nick, you can go into the Windows patching and you can see that this vulnerability is not patched, but it is a virtual patch. If someone were to attempt one of these vulnerabilities, attempt one of these exploits on these endpoints, we notice what that pattern looks like, and we shut down that communication. We give you the detection rule log. So we prevent and we alert about somebody attempting to these exploits. You will find in here some of the most common ones. We've got add printer driver EX. That's print nightmare. I'm sure you guys have heard of that. Things like zero login, NTLM brute force. That's a very, very common thing. Microsoft just passed it a long time ago, but for some reason, it still works all the time to exploit workstations. So there's that, and there's reverse shells. There's a ton of different, all the most common ways in here. So we're just applying a virtual patch across the board. You simply turn that to on, and it enables all of those IPS rules. Cool. Next module here is web reputation. This is where we're assessing the websites that are being accessed by the users. Now, you may see content filtering before, like blocking access to adult sites or blocking access to like e-commerce sites and shopping, but this is a little bit different. We're assessing here how safe this website is, right? Is this something that we've categorized as dangerous, highly suspicious, or suspicious? And if we have, then we can block based on that designation, right? So if I said it's a medium, anything dangerous or highly suspicious, that's going to prevent the user from accessing that. So this can help even like if you receive an email and you didn't have Trend Micro email protection and you clicked on a phishing link and it goes to that site, web reputation kicks in and goes, actually, that site's a known associate of phishing, and so we're going to block that, right? So, and it's also the user's just browsing, clicking on random things. They click on an ad that takes them to someplace that's a watering hole. We know about it. We've marked it as dangerous, and it prevents connection to that website. Interesting to note here, it also looks at backend processes like Bash and PowerShell. So any URL that's accessed by the machine is processed through the web reputation. So this goes beyond just the browser, and that's also why, to an earlier question, we don't need a browser plugin because it's assessing any URL accessed by the machine. Cool. Got a firewall. Won't dive too much into the firewall. Just turn it on. If I put it into advanced mode, you can block and allow ports. I'm sure you guys are pretty familiar with that. One thing to note is we can't enable intrusion detection system. So this is kind of like host-based IDS or intrusion prevention with vulnerability protection, and then we have intrusion detection with the firewall module here. So this is looking for someone actively trying to determine what exploits they could exploit on this endpoint, or doing a reconnaissance scan of sorts. Okay. Endpoint sensor here, turn that on. That's what powers EDR and XDR, which we'll look at in 2 seconds. But just know that this sensor gathers process and telemetry data at all times. and it dumps it first locally, and then it dumps into a data lake that's immutable in the cloud. Immutable, it can't be changed. So when we use our detection and response tools, we're actually looking right at that data lake and seeing the information, all the processes that happen on that machine, they're all laid out there. So I'll show you why that's useful here in a second.
I do want to ask you two questions. Yeah. We'll pick up here. And I think that this goes back to the behavior monitoring section, but Ryan Becker asked, in addition to machine learning, does it use any form of AI?
So the AI here is going to be in the predictive machine learning. Okay. And you'll see that there's not a lot of dials to twist here. There's not a lot of knobs to sliders, but this is AI-based protection right here. This is assessing the file based on what it knows about every other file that's been processed by this machine learning algorithm. And this is looking at something new. It's looking at anomalies. Okay, that's a Word document. That's okay. All of a sudden, something new, a new executable. That's careful and close attention paid by the predictive machine learning. So when you talk about AI, you're more talking about PML.
All right, and Kurt Esser had one more question. What is the impact on CPU RAM usage versus Trend Micro Internet Security or premium security products?
That's a good question. What I will tell you is that the heavy lifter of all these modules continues to be the standard real-time scan. So the most processor and intense process here is going to be the real-time scan that checks files every time they're created, modified, or retrieved. The rest of these put together probably don't equal the same processing power over an aggregate period of time as the real-time scan. I'll say that to say this: if you install this agent and you experience some sort of performance impact, most of the time, if you go to scan exclusions and you put some files, some processes in here that you trust, and you alleviate the burden put onto the real-time scan, those performance issues clear up. And we've got a pretty good success rate of just adding exceptions and, okay, that's better, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
This is Daryl, just to add to that a little bit. From a pure memory usage standpoint, it depends on what features are turned on, but you're looking at anywhere from between about 45 megs of RAM to 85 megs of memory. And generally, real-time scanning uses less than 5% of the CPU cycles.
Yeah.
So, and Bobby Rose said, put up the task manager so we can see the resources currently in use.
I thought to, but I'm actually running Apex One, which is our enterprise product, so it's kind of a different product suite. But the usage is similar. Cool. Anything else?
I think that wraps it up for the questions up to this point.
Awesome. Cool. We'll look at sample submission. Sample submission here is a virtual analyzer. This is included when you do the EDR, XDR. This allows us to detonate files in an isolated, virtualized environment and then observe what happens post-execution. What actually happened when we set off that EXE this person downloaded? Did it attempt to steal credentials? Did it attempt to move laterally within the network? Did it attempt to encrypt files? Things like that. And based on what we observe in that virtual environment, we can take action against these files. So this is also known as sandboxing. But this is just included with EDR. It's completely automatic, again, for anything that's new and low prevalence in the environment, something that hasn't been observed before. Cool. Let me kind of get away from this protection and more into data protection here. First is device control. This allows you to get control of the types of peripherals that you allow to be connected to these machines. The most notable and most common thing that people want to get a hold of is, of course, USB storage devices, also known as flash drives or removable hard drives. At a very basic level, we can simply enforce the block the auto run, preventing someone from just dropping a flash drive in and having that execute a keylogger on one of these endpoints. So very base level there, but you could take this all the way up to blocking them outright, not allowing the use of flash drives at all. But then you can also go into the global settings here in Worry-Free and say, I actually allow these 5 flash drives. So very commonly what we see done, people will order 5 flash drives off Amazon. They'll add them as approved devices. They'll distribute, say these are company approved drives, but everything else is not allowed. So that's something you can do with device control. There are some non-storage implications as well. I think these are nice for servers. Like servers, you should never have Bluetooth devices enabled. You should never probably allow COM and LPT unless very, very specific use cases. And things like modems. Nobody uses modems anymore. You might as well block it, reduce the attack surface, things like that. But you have a lot of control over what types of devices are added in here. So next is data loss prevention. Now, data loss prevention, I'm actually doing a separate webinar on it in a couple of weeks, but this is kind of its own discussion. Most relevant probably for you guys day to day is going to be PCI customers. Hey, we take payment cards. We're signing up for this trust wave certificate. How can we get that done? This can be extremely helpful in a situation like that. Also for people concerned with HIPAA data, because what this does, it looks for patterns in the data. For PCI, it's going to look for credit card numbers in combination with first name, last name, date of birth, things like that. So if I add one, I'm going to add one specifically here for PCI. I notice that we've already got a template for that here. I'm just going to add the template. That includes all the types of information that PCI would be concerned with here, right? So look for that. Look for credit card numbers. Look for date of birth. This is where it's going to look. Are people emailing it? Are they being sent over FTP? Posted via HTTP, saved to a server share with SMB, sent over Gmail, things like that. But then also system channels too. Like, are people printing a document that contains credit card numbers? Are they copying credit card numbers even to the clipboard? Just highlighting and hitting Control-C, it can notice that. And then if it sees that, it can simply say, that was a credit card number, pass and long, just say that's a credit card number, but it can also block and prevent that communication from going out. And so if you can get a handle on the types of data that you want to monitor for, and sometimes that's a very easy question to answer. They may be concerned with HIPAA, they're concerned with PCI, but you get the type of data you want to monitor for and then where you want to monitor for it, and you can actually prevent a data leak using the data loss prevention here. So again, worthy of its own discussion almost by itself, but included as a part of Worry-Free. It's not an extra module add-on. It just comes with it. So, all right, a couple more here. We're almost done. URL filtering. Oh, we're just gonna do that. Sorry about that. URL filtering is a content-based filter. So if I want to block adult websites, I can, and not allow people to go to adult websites altogether. I can do something interesting like social networking, block that. Maybe then block during the leisure hours the adult websites too, right? But social networking, I've left. Let's see here. I can leave it checked during the day, during business hours, but after business hours, go to Facebook all you want to. You can make decisions like that here with URL filtering. So you can actually specify what those business hours are below. So this, in combination with web reputation, really cuts down the amount of bad content that people are accessing, and then also the bad sites that people are accessing, the stuff that's potentially harmful to you. Okay. Next one here is application control. This is the last module. There's two modes here. Very quickly, application control is concerned with what applications are allowed to install and run on these endpoints and which ones are not. The two different modes of operation are block mode. Users can do whatever they want to do, whatever they have permissions to do is fine, unless you create an implicit block rule for it, like block Spotify, block VLC, block, as we see right here, I've got a rule in here to block peer-to-peer programs. So things like BitTorrent and Deluge and Popcorn Time. I just created a rule here just to block those altogether. All right, so that's block mode. Lockdown is a little bit more intense. It does an inventory scan, and then it says, okay, it's not going to allow the installation of any new software unless you've created an implicit allow rule for it. So you kind of reverse your thinking on it. You assign, like, I got some allow rules in here. Like, we're going to allow some streaming applications. We're going to allow whatever's in this media tools right here, right? So we're going to allow specific applications, right? And if you create a new one, there's several different ways that you can specify that. So we have our list, and you could pick from a list, and we've got a ton in here. Most of the time, if the application you're looking for to allow is going to be in here, if it's relatively universal. If it's a custom like line of business application, you can come and actually specify the hash value. This is an okay program. Here's the hash value. This is okay to run on machines. Also, file and folders. It's okay to install out of this specific folder, or this specific file is okay, things like that. So you have some flexibility on how you can create these allow and block rules, but I'm a big fan of lockdown mode simply because if it's not on the list, it doesn't get to run. And so there's a lot of protection just baked into that very simple concept. Okay. That's everything for the modules. Scott, do we have any questions on the board from that?
No, I think everybody calmed down on the questions.
Fantastic. All right, so we're going to leave that. Now we're going to jump to EDR and XDR and really kind of clarify how that's useful and what that can be used for. I do want to touch on cloud app security though. So this would be included as a part of the package if you do Worry-Free Services Advanced or you do Worry-Free Services XDR. And why that's relevant is in order to get XDR, we have to have cross-platform, right? So EDR itself, you can either say endpoint detection and response, or you can say enhanced detection and response. That's what EDR is, right? Just on the endpoint. When we say XDR, we mean cross-platform detection and response. So the key point there is that we've got to have multiple platforms interacting. And if you don't, it's not truly XDR, no matter what they say, right? It has to have multiple platforms being correlated together. In the case of Worry-Free, cloud app security is how we facilitate that. We're looking at your Office 365 or Gmail environment, and we're able to assess the email environment and then correlate that with what happens on the endpoint. And that's where we get XDR. So let's look at an example of what that actually means. I go to my noteworthy events here, which this is how Worry-Free is going to tell you, hey, something's wrong, and we've generated an alert around it, right? It's a noteworthy event. These are automatically generated for you to give you insight to something that's been detected on your network, but also give you more information, just like, hey, we found a virus and we cleaned it. And you're like, okay, well, where'd it come from? Do other people have those elements? How do we make sure this doesn't happen again? Things like that. Those are the types of questions we want to answer with EDR. So I'll look at this one right here. A very simple noteworthy event here, but it shows you the power of it very clearly here. So what we have at the end here is, let me just move this Zoom screen over here. All right. What we have at the end here is, this is our actual detection, ICAR-COM, right? This is a known threat, known malicious file. Without EDR, this is all the information that you get. Here's the path that we found it at. Here's the file hash, and here's what we did in response. Right? With EDR and XDR, we see the whole path that led up to that here. We can see that it actually came from a zip file called ICAR-PW, right? So this is we've already taken action against it. It's already in the suspicious object list, but one of the options you have here is to right-click this or click this and say, add this to the suspicious object. So now instead of getting to the end here, the zip file that was the originator of our detection is now a part of our suspicious objects. Same thing with the 7-zip that it also came from originally. You see here at the bottom, I have the option to block that object. So we're saying that the processes that led up to our detection are actually now suspicious objects within the network. So we're updating, in essence, our own custom internal intelligence based on what's being observed on the endpoint. Cool stuff. We also know that this was on November 22nd at 10:52 a.m., and Outlook was the originating process. So there are some exceptions here, but by and large, if Outlook's the originating process, then this threat came in over email, right? And so we know exactly what time it was. We know what user it was and what endpoint it was. So we have this printed here. I can go to that user and I have actionable intelligence and point at the screen and say, you know, I'm not mad. I'm just frustrated, right? Like you opened up an attachment that contains something that led to a detection. Let's talk about your cybersecurity awareness in general, right? This is where XDR comes in. Because we have XDR, we have cloud security looking at the email as well. When I click on this bubble, I see which email it came in, the exact email that it came in on. I can say also quarantine or delete that. And because cloud security works on an API, it's not working on mail flow like a typical mail filtering solution is. When I say quarantine this message, I don't see next time you see it. I'm saying reach into that user's inbox right now and pull that message out and ensure that they can't do what we're observing here again. And also, if they've got any other email that has the same attachments, or if there are other users in your organization that also have that same email, which is very common. If I find that I can get something past someone's defenses into an inbox, I'm going to try other users in that organization as well. So we observe that, and you can take quarantine or delete messages across all of that. So we've identified the actual problem. We know where it came from. We updated our custom intelligence about it. Then we took action on the email items that originated them using the XDR functions here. Okay. This leads me into threat investigation, which I'm very quickly going to go over. I think I'm running a little bit on time here, but let's say I want to know right now, does this 7-zip file, that's the originator of our threat, is this floating around on any of the other endpoints? I can grab that file hash, go through a threat investigation, and basically ask the data lake, hey, any of you guys seen this file hash? Right? No endpoints match here. If they did, it shows, yeah, this endpoint interacted with that file hash at this time. And then you can generate what's called a root cause analysis to, again, generate essentially what we just watched in the noteworthy, what we just saw in the noteworthy events. What process spawned what process? What happened that led to that device interacting with that file hash? So you can see how your investigations go from, yeah, we saw the virus, we see it, I kind of did another scan, we're pretty sure everything's okay, to here's all the IOCs, the indicators of compromise, here's exactly what happened, here's what we're doing in response to it. It's a lot better response with more actionable intelligence than just running an antivirus or even just running the behavior monitoring predictive machine learning event. So that's really the value of XDR, and that's the value of the XDR package. Yeah, so that's a mouthful. Did any questions come up while we were talking there?
Yeah, absolutely. So
Okay.
how does the EDR XDR function different? How does it compare to Zero Trust?
So Zero Trust and EDR, there's some crossover there, but Zero Trust is almost a different vertical altogether, I would say. And Zero Trust is, and not to deflect your guys, but it's such a broad topic with multiple people defining it in different ways that it's difficult for me to really compare and contrast those two. It's like saying, it's like, what's the difference between IPS and the real-time scan? The answer is they're just two completely different verticals. Zero Trust is about let's lock down only the access necessary for this specific user, application, or device to function and not allow anything else. So it kind of goes above and beyond the scope of EDR. EDR is more about, again, taking insights when something actually does happen and learning from that. Zero Trust is about an initial hardening. So they're kind of two different ends of the spectrum.
All right. And Terry Uland has another question as well. Is there an API to access all of this to feed to a PSA, etc.?
There is. I believe, Daryl, you have to open up a ticket with support to gain access to the API for Worry-Free. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Yeah, but there is an API with Worry-Free, and that can be interfaced with. Yes.
Okay.
Follow-up answer to that, it does integrate with your big PSAs and RMMs. So there's a bunch of different TechWise, Kaseya, Datto, all the big guys work and integrate with, and it'll do your standard features, log tickets, automated billing, all that good stuff. So some documentation on that.
Very good.
Awesome. What do you think, Daryl? We cover it here? Anything else I can touch on?
No, I think you're good.
Okay, cool. Well, then I really appreciate everyone's time and letting me talk at you. I'm going to pass it to Daryl where we can look at more specific tools there. So thank you again.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you, Brandon. Get my screen shared out here. Just a minute. Building on that question about RMM tools and APIs, like Kyle stated, we do have integration that's in one of the tools, one of the utilities that Trend Micro offers to our MSP partners. That's through Remote Manager. That's the next slide that I've got. Prior to that, or one of the other tools is called License Management Portal or License Management Platform, simply referred to as LNP. This is what you get access to as an MSP partner to allow you to manage your customer accounts, create service plans. This is where you're going to be presented the products that you are willing to offer and create service plans around those, opportunity to view and report usage for billing purposes. Kyle can work with you to talk about how Trend Micro bills in arrears. So you sign up a new customer, you deploy your agents, and then at the end of the month, we present or show a list of what agents were deployed, basically your usage, and then bill you based on that. So you're not being overbilled, you're not being charged for products that you're not using or deploying. And then from the license management portal, from your day-to-day operation, you would access the remote manager. There's a link in the LMP portal that would take you to this console. This is where you have your visibility into events, detections, customer needs, and notifications. Multiple ways that you can present or display this information in the widgets that you see here. This is a true multi-tenant view of all of your customer accounts and access, direct access, single sign-on access to their consoles. If you wanted to drill down, and basically it would be the console that Brandon was showing. So you can drill down on those. You can give your clients actual access to those consoles if you would like, and limit what their capabilities are. You can restrict them to viewing and reporting only, or give them permission to make policy changes. That same XDR functionality that Brandon showed you from the client console is also visible directly from the remote manager. So this is going to display all those XDR events, noteworthy events, and assessments at the high level across multiple customers. Run customer reports for individual or multiple customers at the same time.
Can I make a note on that that cross-customer XDR? What's cool about that, you get a noteworthy event from one client that contains indicators of compromise, actual files that you'd say these are now suspicious. You can run an investigation across your entire client base to say, make sure that something that has affected one client isn't in effect affecting another one. So as you gain intelligence at one client, it helps you across all of them. So I think it's really cool that detection and response is centralized there in that view. And I'll pass it back to you, Daryl. Just wanted to add that note.
Oh, thank you for that.
Cheers.
Connection to RMM tools, like Kyle said, right? And really, these tools are free for you to use. It's not, there's no charge for those, but it gives you that central visibility and management for policy management, health monitoring, and advanced threat detection. Kind of like Brandon was saying, the Cloud App Security and the Worry-Free services together provide us that XDR capability, reporting telemetry data and events into the data lake for that visibility and correlation of events. Trend Micro does also offer a co-managed MDR service. So Trend Micro engineers can help you monitor 24/7 the events across your customer base and work with you to notify you to do remediation based on your requirements. Something as simple as isolating an endpoint, reporting that to you, and working with you to resolve or remediate that. Do further investigation, check like Brandon mentioned, across your customer base to see if that's impacting anybody else. Continuing monitoring for activities, identifying the threats, conducting and mitigating measures, and then routinely sweeping for threats. You know, one of the things that came out this past weekend in the news, of course, the Log4 vulnerability, and that's one of the things that our engineers would do, is sweep for information related to those kind of vulnerabilities that we become aware of. One of the other products that was kind of on our list of topics to talk about was Cloud Edge. Cloud Edge is a UTM device that Trend Micro offers. It is exclusively available through an MSP partner. It is not something that a general customer can acquire and use. It is managed just like worry-free services, just like Cloud App Security, and just like our email security solution. via a cloud console and accessible through Remote Manager. Cloud Edge does not require a local management. As a matter of fact, you can configure Cloud Edge from Remote Manager prior to deployment, and then all you have to do, or all the customer has to do, is plug the network cables in and start getting the protection that you've defined for them. It is purpose-built for MSPs, like I mentioned, offers better performance than most other UTM boxes out there. And then, like I mentioned, the management. Pretty simple design. I know we've added some models to this. I think most of those are fanless, very small, compact, and doesn't require a whole lot of maintenance, self-updating, etc. Providing things like URL filtering, bandwidth control, intrusion prevention, malware scanning at the network layer, email security, web reputation, VPN access as well is part of that included, firewall, and then HTTPS scanning. This is one of the ways that we do this, provide the throughput, is by offloading some of the capabilities into the cloud. So a lot of our competitors, generally you would oversize those because of, if you're turning on all the features and functionality, you're going to significantly impact the throughput. So we try to avoid that. There's always going to be a little bit of bandwidth concern as you turn modules on, but we help provide some high performance by offloading some of the functionality into the cloud.
Daryl, I have a quick question for you.
Sure.
Do you have more than one of these UTMs? Is it just one, or do you have a fleet of UTMs that are sized differently?
That's a great question. So here's a few of the models. They're generally referred to based on the number of users that might be protected by them.
Okay.
So the Cloud Edge SB, 2 to 25 users. And these are also, this is another really unique aspect. Kyle can help answer some pricing for you guys, but they're billed monthly, no upfront cost or payment, no long-term commitment or contract or requirement. You can deploy those, provide that protection, and bill for them as they're being used. If the customer upgrades or changes, that's a simple swap, and you don't continue to pay for what you're not using, right? So it's pretty straightforward. The SBW includes a Wi-Fi capability, 2 to 25 users. The Cloud Edge 50 up to generally a 50 user environment, and then probably the newest one, the 100. So if you've got questions about those, we can certainly get some more details to you, or have a call with you to talk about those. Just from comparison purposes, some of the other competitors out there, like I mentioned, have some long-term commitments or upfront costs. Trend Micro tries to simplify that for your MSP business. An example of how bandwidth might degrade as you turn on the different features and functionality. Here you see at the top, if you're just using that as a firewall, you get that high throughput, but as you turn on the features, going down the list, your bandwidth can get reduced. But here you can see, Trend Micro's bandwidth is about maybe half of the stated bandwidth at the top if you turn everything on, but it's still significantly better than some of our competitors' bandwidth offerings when you turn everything on. So again, zero-touch deployment, centralized firmware updates, and low-touch requirements on those. Any questions about Cloud Edge?
No, that's very interesting. I'm very intrigued. I had no idea that you had hardware appliances.
Cool. Trend Micro's got about 45 products in our arsenal, and I like to oftentimes start off calls showing kind of the big portfolio. If anybody wants to do a one-on-one, we can talk about some of the other capabilities, including operational devices, solutions for air-gapped environments and OT type environments, manufacturing, etc. So we've got solutions for that as well.
I do have a quick question for you, Daryl. Terry Uland asked, how is the throughput tested?
I don't know personally.
Okay.
I'm going to guess that that somebody's put some sniffers and network monitoring equipment on those, and then cranked up the usage. So,
gotcha. Okay.
And then the last thing that was on our topic list to talk about was email phishing assessment solution. Trend Micro's got one called simply Phish Insight, and probably the most impressive thing about this is I think it comes close to matching what most of you guys probably know and may have used is the Know Before solution. I've had several conversations over the past couple of weeks where partners have been asked to sign multi-year contracts for that solution. Trend Micro doesn't require that. We offer this service free for you to use. There are some limits in that I think you're limited to 200 emails on a single campaign. You can ask for and request an advanced license, which right now today I don't believe there's a cost for, but that will increase some capabilities and the amount of emails that can be sent out simultaneously. But Kyle or I can help you with that if there's an interest or need. But really, Phishinsight.com will get you there. You simply create an account and log in. Why is it important? Obviously, the majority of threats come through email, and one of Brandon's examples was an end user opening their email and getting a detection or worse, an infection. So using assessments to evaluate what your users activity is like and offering training based on what their responses are. So you create a campaign and kick that off, and depending on how long you want to run that campaign, you can have results back the same day or within a few days to help you identify who's clicking on stuff that they shouldn't, who's not checking their email. It's as simple as creating a campaign, selecting the group of people that you want to send these to that can be imported. To create a group or a list, you select from, I know there's more than 52 templates now, but common or enticing templates that people, hey, I want to click on that, or here's a free Amazon gift card. Those are things that people are going to want to click on, and then evaluate whether or not make it enticing, and then decide when that campaign gets kicked off and how long it runs. And then again, based on their responses, you can trigger that to take them to a training session. We've got dozens of options for training, different topics. different publishers, and we keep adding to that all the time. Now, the slides that I'm showing here are from an earlier version of this. They've changed the interface a little bit, so when you log in, it might look a little bit different, but it's the same type of configuration, and then you can visualize or see the results, report on those, and then help you with understanding where your customers are. Are they improving? Are they needing more training, right? And then obviously the Phish Insight, because it's free, it makes it a great tool for you to use to work with and generate interest with new potential customers. Give them some opportunity to have a conversation with you about protecting their environment, their email. Cloud App Security is a great place to start. Cloud Edge, of course, can provide that protection as well.
Very good.
I think that's going to wrap it up for me.
Cool. I have one final slide I just want to share with you guys real quick. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect.
Yes.
So if you guys are interested in Trend Micro's MSP program, you can visit trendmicro.com/MSP. You can also reach out to me directly, Kyle_McCaffrey@trendmicro.com. I'm also super respondent on Facebook. I know I've talked with quite a few of you guys. I've tried to be as respondent as possible, even late in the night if you got questions. We actually are running an end of year special. So for all new partners, we are offering 3 free months of our entire worry-free suite. That does include our SOC as a service, which is known as the co-managed XDR. So if you do want to try our 24/7 SOC product, see how that kind of aligns with your business, you certainly can try that. And the 3 free months of SOC is also applies to our current base. So Ryan, that would also apply to you. And then 75 free NFR licenses of XDR. So that's good forever. So as soon as you sign up within our MSP program, you can throw on up to 75 licenses of the XDR. We know that you got to kind of test it out, see that the proof is in the pudding, a good way to put it, and just see how the product kind of works in your environment. So I will open the floor back up to Scott if there's any follow-up questions. Come after. I'm more than happy to respond or anything from the Facebook Live conversation. If there's anything left.
No, I think that's it. I think we wrapped everything up. I really appreciate everyone's time today. Thank you so much for the demo and very nice product. It's very complete, very comprehensive. So that sounds great.
I appreciate your time, Scott, and
Thank
the
you.
ICDOG community. Thank you guys so much.
Sounds great. I hope everyone has a happy holiday. Thanks.
Have a great day, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.